A single orb-weaver is running at least 7 different production lines at once. One gland spins the tough lifeline it hangs from. Another spins a stretchy capture thread that can stretch to triple its length without breaking. A third squirts out the glue that makes the web sticky. Same spider, same body, completely different materials on demand. And the strongest of those threads is, weight for weight, stronger than steel. The question is how one tiny animal manufactures all of it from the same raw protein. Let's start with the factory itself, because that's the part most people get backwards. When you picture a spider making silk, you probably imagine one kind of thread coming out of one spot. But an orb-weaver is closer to a chemical plant with multiple departments. Tucked into its abdomen are several different silk glands, and each one produces its own specialized material. The major ampullate gland makes the dragline, the strong stuff the spider hangs from and uses for the frame of the web. The flagelliform gland makes the stretchy spiral that actually catches prey. The aggregate gland produces the sticky glue that coats that spiral. There's a minor ampullate gland for an auxiliary thread, and a pyriform gland that makes the cement the spider uses to attach lines to a wall or a leaf. According to the overview on spider silk, orb-weavers can produce at least 7 distinct silk types this way, and the spider chooses which one to use for which job. Think about what that actually requires. The same animal, working from roughly the same starting ingredient, has to make a thread that's rigid enough to hold its weight, and also a thread that's elastic enough to absorb a flying insect without snapping, and also a liquid glue that stays tacky in the open air. Those are wildly different jobs. A human factory would need 3 separate facilities and 3 different chemistries to pull that off. The spider does it from a few glands packed into a body smaller than your thumbnail. So how does a liquid become a fiber? This is where it gets genuinely strange. Inside the spider, silk doesn't start as thread at all. It starts as a liquid protein, basically a concentrated goo dissolved in water, stored in the gland. The spider doesn't bake it, doesn't press it, doesn't use any harsh chemistry. It pulls. As the liquid protein is drawn out through a narrow duct and pulled out of the body, the protein molecules line up and lock together, and the material solidifies into a solid fiber on the way out. It's a self-assembly process driven mostly by the act of drawing the silk and by tiny changes in acidity and water along the duct. All of it happens at room temperature, out of water and protein, with no heat, no furnace, and no toxic solvents. A material that rivals industrial fibers, manufactured in a process gentler than making a cup of tea. That last point is worth sitting with. We make our strongest synthetic fibers using high heat, pressure, and aggressive chemicals. The spider makes something comparable while sitting on a fence in your backyard, spending almost no energy and producing 0 waste. It's one of the cleanest manufacturing processes on the planet, and it evolved long before anyone was thinking about clean manufacturing. Now for the claim everybody's heard, and the part where you have to be careful, because this is exactly where most explanations cheat. You've probably been told spider silk is stronger than steel. That's true, but only if you keep one specific qualifier attached to it. Weight for weight, dragline silk is stronger than steel. Pound for pound, ounce for ounce for its weight. That qualifier is doing enormous work, and dropping it turns a real fact into a false one. Here's the honest version. If you measure raw tensile strength, how much pulling force a thread can take before it breaks, dragline silk lands somewhere around 1 to 1.3 gigapascals, which is comparable to a high-grade alloy steel. Darwin's bark spider, which makes the toughest known silk, reaches a bit higher, around 1.6 gigapascals. That's strong, but it's in the same league as good steel, not beyond it. So why does the stronger than steel line hold up at all? Density. Spider silk is about 1/6 as dense as steel. So if you take a strand of silk and a strand of steel that weigh exactly the same, the silk is roughly 5 times stronger. because you get so much more thread for the same weight. According to a detailed materials breakdown by Knife Steel Nerds, that's the whole trick. It's not that silk beats steel in a head-to-head pull. It's that silk is astonishingly light for how strong it is. There's a number that makes the density point land. A single strand of dragline silk long enough to wrap all the way around the Earth would weigh only about 2 kilograms. A thread circling the entire planet, and you could hold it in 2 hands. If you're enjoying this, consider subscribing. More deep dives on the weird engineering of the animal world come out on the channel regularly. While we're being honest about comparisons, let's deal with Kevlar too, because that one gets exaggerated the same way. Silk is tougher than Kevlar, and tougher has a precise meaning here. Toughness is how much energy a material can absorb before it breaks, not how much force it can resist. Spider silk soaks up far more energy than Kevlar before failing, which is why a web can stop a fast-moving insect without shattering. The thread stretches, bends, and dissipates the impact instead of resisting it rigidly. But tougher is not the same as stronger. The best Kevlar and specialized steels still beat silk on absolute tensile strength. So the accurate way to say it is that spider silk is one of the toughest natural fibers known. Not that it's the strongest material on Earth. The truth is impressive enough without inflating it. This is also where you start to appreciate the flagelliform thread, the capture spiral. That one is built for stretch, not stiffness. It can extend to roughly triple its original length before breaking. Imagine a rubber band you could pull out to 3 times its size and trust to snap back, except it's also catching a beetle traveling at full speed. The dragline gives the web its skeleton, and the stretchy spiral gives it the give it needs to absorb a hit. 2 threads, 2 completely different mechanical personalities from the same little animal. So, if spider silk is this remarkable and this clean to produce, why aren't your clothes and your car seat belts made of it already? This is the real wonder of the whole story. We have known about spider silk's properties for a long time. We have sequenced the proteins. We can even get bacteria and other organisms to produce the raw silk protein in a lab. And we still cannot fully replicate dragline silk industrially. The reason comes back to that pulling process. The strength of natural silk doesn't live only in the protein recipe. It lives in how the spider draws the fiber, how the molecules align as the liquid is pulled through the duct and out into the air. Get the protein, but spin it wrong, and the molecular chains don't line up the same way, and the fiber comes out weaker. The spider's body controls that alignment with a precision we have spent decades trying to copy and haven't matched. We can make the ingredient. We can't fully reproduce the manufacturing. The hardest part isn't the chemistry, it's the spinning. Step back and look at what this little animal is doing. It stores a liquid protein, then on demand, it can turn that protein into a rigid lifeline, a stretchy net, or a wet glue, choosing the right material for each job. It manufactures a fiber that is, for its weight, stronger than steel and tougher than Kevlar. At room temperature, out of water and protein, with no heat and no waste. And after all our laboratories and all our funding, the spider on your windowsill is still better at this than we are. Not by a little, by a margin we cannot yet close. The next time you walk through a web and feel that thread cling to your face, remember what just brushed against you. Not a cobweb. A factory, a clean energy process, and a material science problem we still haven't solved, all spun out of an animal you could lose under a coffee cup. If you want more stories about the strange engineering hiding inside ordinary animals, there's plenty more on the channel.